There has been an expression that's commonly used around Macon that says Macon a difference. Macon a difference. And initially I didn't quite understand with it until such time that I became involved with a project called On the Table. And its purpose was to Macon a difference. And we're going to talk about that today and its success and its purposes, etc. This is a call to action.
A call to action.
I'm your host, Alex Havisham, and we're going to talk about what has happened with On the Table. Though we're sitting around the table, but it was not necessarily talking about the table, but it was talking about getting people together at a table to be engaged and make a difference. And I have with me today Mr. David Moore, Project Manager for Newtown Macon, Ms. Jennifer Lotzenhauser, I hope I said that correctly, who's the Director of the Middle Georgia Regional Library. And we also have Ms. Nancy Cleveland, who's the Communications Associate with the Community Foundation. And of course, last but not least, Ms. Catherine Dennis, who is the President of Newtown Macon.
Nope. Community Foundation.
Of the Community Foundation. I get it right. I tried to do it perfectly.
I know. You're all right then.
But we all related, so we'll just move right on.
I'll blame her.
Okay. On the Table was a phenomenal activity, and for me personally, it was a phenomenal experience. And talk a little bit, President Dennis, about the concept and the purpose of On the Table.
Okay. Thank you for having us today, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who participated, the almost 5,000 people around Macon Biv on October 17th. Throughout the day, we had around 500 conversations, and it was an uplifting day, and I believe we have started the ball rolling for more civic engagement and more community conversations. And the idea behind On the Table is that when people break bread together and get in smaller groups and actually get to know each other, that it's easier to talk about difficult things and to come up with solutions and to realize that as individuals, we really can make a difference. And that's where real change is going to happen anyways, when we decide we're going to do something and not wait for someone else to do it.
That's absolutely correct. And all of us participated in the discussions, including yours truly. And I just thought it was, nothing short of phenomenal to get people comfortably around the table and discuss certain issues, initiatives, and concerns. What did you all talk about, Jennifer?
We hosted, so the library system hosted 29 tables.
Wow.
And so we talked about a lot of different things, but they ranged everything from what makes Macon great, which is a great starting space, to food scarcity and challenges for immigrants in the Middle Georgia area. So we covered a lot of ground in those tables.
Now, do you think that there was something substantive that come out of those discussions?
Absolutely. My personal favorite discussion was we called it A Stranger in a Strange Land, and we changed the signage at one of the libraries to all Spanish language, and we selected community leaders to come and join our table. They were greeted in Spanish, they received all of their instruction in Spanish, and they really had the opportunity to see what it felt like to be completely out of your element and rely upon that information. And the number one thing that we learned from that experience was we had some immigrant families come and share with us, and they shared their stress from the hurricane, that all of the safety information and updates came in English, and they had to wait for it to be translated before they could care for their families. And of course, we shared that with the people who were at the table, and then took it further to relay it back to the people that could make those decisions.
EMA and all that. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the objectives, I'm sure, was to emphasize and promote inclusion.
Yes.
And I've heard you all mention that as it relates to coming up with why we're doing On the Table to make a difference. How about you, David?
So Newtown actually hosted two tables. The first was a table with the residents of the Dempsey Apartments in downtown Macon.
That's important.
Yes, and then the second one was just a general conversation that anybody could walk into our office and talk to us that afternoon. But I really enjoyed the conversation with the Dempsey residents because, you know, when you look at the demographics of who comes and shops or lives or work downtown, it doesn't also always include that population. And so it was great just to hear from them and how things are at the Dempsey, how they enjoy interacting with people downtown, how they enjoy interacting with our downtown spaces, and just hearing from them how they could be more included and how they want to be a part of the community. So it was just a great conversation with them.
Let me make an observation here, if I may. I think those two conversations indicate the need for inclusion and the need to reach out to everybody. One thing that happens in our society, you have the same elevated individuals and programs reaching elevated individuals and programs. So one of the good things about On the Table is it gave everybody an opportunity to make an expression and to have input and to indicate their concerns and to make a difference and to feel involved and to feel related and to feel important as it relates to the community in which we all live. Miss Cleveland.
Yes, sir.
How about you? You know, what's your expression about not only the tables, but also your involvement in the process?
Well, honestly, you gave me a great segue because one of the main parts of On the Table that I wanted to emphasize was the concept of inclusivity. And I'm not sure if I said that right, excuse me if there's an extra syllable. But two highlighted tables from that concept would be the table at Daybreak and the table that we got in the jail with Sheriff Davis. And I was so happy about that. I was able to plug in their answers to the survey and just to see what was important to them. It was funny. They all emphasized that they wanted more job training. They wanted more job access. And when you think about what leads you to go to a criminal, whatever activity, maybe it's like having lack of access to resources. Another thing that I think was a highlight from On the Table was that we had tables in every zip code in Macon-Bibb County. So I really see On the Table and the Conversation to Action grants, where we had over 42 applicants, as the very next step to the Downtown Challenge grants. And now expanding that improvement and that reach and that advocacy throughout Macon-Bibb County. And that's what I hope to see going forward.
Well, let me tell you, I'm almost getting goosebumps here because it's so important. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science because if you involve everybody in the process and if one understands that everybody brings something to the table, then it can make a phenomenal, not only a phenomenal difference, but a measurable difference in the community. Okay, now we got all this information and we've got all this concern. So what are we going to do with it?
What are we going to do? Well, I want to share with you that there has not been a day since October 17th that somebody hasn't said, just in conversation, well, at my On the Table conversation, this came up. I mean, it is now, I think, part of our culture here, and people think, well, I heard this, so what are we going to do next? And one of our steering committee members said that their hope was that On the Table would become a verb, that we need to on the table that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. And so for us, the Community Foundation organized this, and the Knight Foundation funded it, but it's our gift to the community, and it's the community's to use. And so what's next? If you attended a table and participated, we ask you to come away with one or two things that you could do as a person. What one person in training said, now once we decide what needs to be done, who's going to do it? And we said, you are. And that's what we want everybody to know. Who's going to do it? You are. This is about civic engagement, civic pride, and taking ownership and moving our community forward, because each of us has that ability and really that responsibility. So we ask everybody who participated, those 5,000 people, act on those one or two things that you said you were going to do. Share it with us. Post it on social media. # On the Table Macon, so we can gather this. Give us those anecdotal stuff. There's no way. But we ask everybody to take a survey. We had 5,000 participate, 872 people filled out the survey. So that is a statistically valid, the data will be statistically valid. Now, did I want all 5,000 people to participate? Yes, and I wanted to pinch off some heads so people did it, because the data is important too, because it's going to tell us, it will tell us what's important to our community, and what do we need to work on? Where do we need to start putting our resources and our time? And so that we're going to take that data. That we had two PR firms that work together, Hart and POS. What's it?
Public service.
Okay, yes, but, well, Hart and POS, and they, public opinion strategies, they'll give us all the data, and then we will make that data available to everyone, and it'll be searchable. You can do it by demographic, by zip code, by topic. We'll put it out there, and we'll have that we will announce it the 1st of January. We should have it around the holidays, but we figure it might get lost in the holidays, so we'll share that. But in between that, though, Nancy just mentioned that we had 42 conversation to action grants. The Community Foundations Board voted to allocate $20,000 in grants to kickstart these ideas. We said some people might need, want a little capital. We thought most things, one of the questions we asked is, what could you do with $100 in one day? So we wanted people to think that you don't have to have money to do something. That you have something that's just as valuable, your time you need to invest. But we'll be announcing those grants the first week of December, the winners of those grants, and then we'll be able to follow the impact that those grants have. And so that's our action. And what's the last thing we're doing? Remember? We're setting the date for
On the Table 2019.
2019. So
Wow.
we're going to do it again.
Those goosebumps have not left me. I thought they would simmer down.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about more about actions that they're going to suggest and actions that individuals can take, and an approach to even being more involved of what's happening in the community when we come back. This is a call to action.
A call to action.
I'm your host, Alex Habersham, interviewing Jennifer and David and Nancy and Catherine. We'll be right back. We're back. I'm your host, Alex Habersham, of A Call to Action, interviewing Mr. David Moore, project manager for Newtown Macon, Miss Jennifer Lotzenheiser, director of the regional library, Miss Nancy Cleveland, who's the communication associate for the Community Foundation, of course, Miss Catherine Dennis, who's the president of the Community Foundation. And we were having this discussion about a phenomenal event that occurred last month in October, sponsored by the Community Foundation and supported by the Now Foundation, called On the Table, which really involved getting people together, getting the community together, getting the individuals together to talk about what each of us, or what we can do as a community to make this a better community in several different areas. And we had a discussion about, it's not just about these organizations, it's about everybody. So Ms. Dennis said it was a phenomenal event. So talk about what, the follow-up, what's going to happen next. Because one of Dr. King's expressions was that a lot of people are 10-day people. And what that means is when something happens and they become excited for 10 days. And after 10 days, nothing happens. But we don't want that to happen with On the Table. Subsequently, there are initiatives and activities and projects and actions that individuals can take, to make sure that it moves forward.
What we want is for people to act on their ideas. What they claimed is what they were going to do, is their takeaway that day, personally what they're going to do. We want them to share that with the community. And I'm going to let Nancy offer some ways that people can share what their ideas are.
Yes.
And what they're doing.
There's A couple of different ways. Sorry to cut you off, Catherine. A couple of different ways that people can get involved. Mainly, joining the On the Table Macon Facebook group is one way to interact with all the hosts and guests that participated. There are about 190 members at this point, so feel free to join or add a friend. You can share ideas and keep up to date with what is going to be coming up next. Another way to keep updated is going to onthetablemacon.com. onthetablemacon.com or cfcga.org. cfcga.org. Those are two websites that will keep you updated, and the things that you want to keep an eye out for or are the date where we'll be announcing the grant announcement of the winners of the Conversation to Action grants. And you also want to keep an eye out for the date where we release the data from the surveys that were taken. So that'll be something every month since On the Table, November, January, and then after January, we'll be monitoring the progress of all the projects that were inspired by On the Table Making Conversations. And even if you don't get funded, we still want you to engage and act, and we can follow your progress via social media. You can email us at info@cfcga.org or even give us a call at 478-750-9338. 750-9338. So those are the different ways that you can stay in touch with us, to keep an eye out for our upcoming events and to share your ideas.
Now, don't complain. You know, too often, I'm serious.
Yes, I agree.
Too often we hear individuals say, well, this ain't right and that ain't right and this isn't going on, and they don't want to know what I think. You can't say that anymore. That is no longer true. And then I want you to give that phone number, because at a minimum, if you didn't remember all that other stuff, get ready to write this website and this phone number down.
Yes, the websites are onthetablemacon.com, or you can call us at 478-750-9338.
Okay, now they made the announcement. What I'm sure what you want to see is when On the Table next year comes up, then it will begin with braggadocious information
Yes.
about what has happened with On the Table this year. David, were there any suggestions or activities or suggested projects or motivations that you observed? Because, like I said, we don't want it to end.
Yeah.
So just talk a little bit about, as a result of your conversation at your table, then what kind of was suggested and what you think can be done.
I mean, the easiest one that we had from our conversation with the Dempsey residents was just to include them more in special events that are happening and make sure they know about that. In this day and age, you don't always think about those who do not have access to a computer, or you think everybody has a smartphone. It's not that case with these folks. Some of these people are on fixed incomes, so they do not have smart cell phones, or the computer lab may be having an issue. So one easy thing that I'm going to start doing myself is just taking posters over there or communicating with their on-site coordinator to let them know about special events coming up. Because in-house they have a calendar, but you have to be able to go there or report to the coordinator. So that's just one of the easiest things that we're going to do to make sure that they feel more included and let them know about different special events that they can attend in downtown Macon. But another deliverable we walked away with were just some small things that could be fixed in their building. And we actually have a donor that's going to pay for those upgrades. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. Like, the smallest thing was having a handicap accessible door, just to push that button so that it automatically opens.
Wow.
You would think that would already be there, but it's not. But we have a donor that's going to
And
pay
that
for
all
that
came
work.
out just from taking the time to sit
talk
down
to
and talk
them.
to talk to
The
them.
funny thing is, the day started off, so we were going to have our discussion outside in 3rd Street Park. It started raining, it was cold, but thank goodness that they actually have a community room in the basement of the Dempsey Apartments. And so we were able to move down there. We provided them with breakfast from Famous Mike's, who's just moved downtown on Poplar Street.
Wow.
And so not only did we get to support a business, but we got to have this great conversation with folks that we don't normally get to talk to.
Well, I got two things to say about that. One is, you know, as a person gets older, they gain knowledge and wisdom. You know, and when I was younger, I didn't understand what wisdom meant. So my point is that there are probably some resources as it relates to these individuals' experiences. If we give them an opportunity to have input we could get some good stuff out of that.
Definitely.
You know, so, you know, it just warms my heart because there's an old expression that says, and I'm not that old, don't you say anything, Nancy. You know, there's an old expression that says the proof is in the pudding.
Yes.
You know, so that's the pudding man. And then I'm sure that there are several other instances. So if somebody can think of any other specificities as relates to Jennifer, Nancy, or even you, Captain, Ms. President, of some, you know, regardless of how small. You know, one thing that we talked about at my table was diversity as it relates to economic diversity, particularly for minorities, and inclusion, you know, in the process. When everybody participates, the whole community wins. So was there anything that came out that you would like to share?
Well, I shared one already. The other one, I'm not sure it's exactly what you're looking for, but I thought it was very impactful.
If you say it, I'm looking for it, okay?
We had one group that came together to meet at a library, and they just felt very empowered by the experience. They liked being able to share ideas with people that they don't normally have conversations with, and they've asked to for us to allow the space for them to continue meeting.
Wow.
That's what we hope will happen too.
Wow.
Those groups
Yeah.
will just spontaneously do it. you know,
And they
keep
are.
talking.
I don't know
That's
what's going to
great.
come out of it, but they are.
But they're friendships of people who didn't know each other before. And and what I heard over and over again was, I mean, I was kind of nervous to go in and go to a table, particularly these public tables. Half of our tables were private, where you were invited to come, but half were public, and people could choose. And they said I was nervous to go to a table where I didn't know people. And
But I feel like that was the best part.
that was the best
because
part,
you
yes.
didn't know what you were going to walk into, and
Yes.
you walked out making new connections that you have never met without on the table happening that day.
Let me tell you all
That's the
something.
beauty of it. I hope we'll have more and more of those.
I don't know whether you all realize, as the sponsors and the promoters of On the Table, the necessity, the dire need, you know, not only in Macon, Georgia, but across the country, you know, because we're not that far apart as one would think. But the way to know how close we are together is to get on the table and have a conversation. So that's extremely important. You want to add anything, Miss Nancy?
Well, millennials throw around a term having a zeitgeist, cultural zeitgeist, and I believe
Cultural what?
zeitgeist.
Don't blame
You
the
can explain that to me?
Yes.
Z-Y-G-U-S?
It's I don't challenge me to spell it.
Z-E-I-G-I-S-T.
Well, whatever
That's
it
what I
is.
mean.
Yeah.
But the concept is when you basically have a paradigm shift, but it's not just an individual paradigm shift, it's a collective paradigm shift. And I truly believe that's what On the Table did. We needed to change the story in Macon, and not just the story of Macon, the story people tell of themselves in Macon. And that's what On the Table did. Now, when people get to brag about their city, they can brag about On the Table. We gave them that.
Right.
And I love that part because unfortunately, up until that event, Maconites have been their own worst enemies in
Right.
the stories that
Right.
they told.
Right.
So this helped to propel that forward, and I love that.
I went to a group of young professionals. That was the last table I attended. It was a rooftop, and I just loved it. But this
Shout
young
out to
woman,
Urbane.
yes, exactly. This young woman said, "You know what I love about Macon?" She said, "I'm not from here, but you don't have to be someone to become someone."
Wow.
And that you can in Macon, you can make your way, and you can be a part of the community really fast. And I love that. And then an earlier one, another young woman said that she really appreciated the opportunity to lead. That people let her rise to the occasion and lead. And so
I would agree.
more of us, we need to
Yeah.
just say they are so competent, and that's our best and brightest hope. And so we need to let them take it and run.
Well, piggybacking right off of that, Wes at one of my tables at the Methodist Home with Verta Colvin, he said that if you want to take in the culture, go to a big city. But if you want to create the culture, come to Macon, come to a small city.
Come to us.
And that's what my
And there
table
are
was.
plenty, and then I'm so glad that we're having this discussion because, you know, too much negativity, Macon gets too much negative exposure when all of these good things are going on in the community. And before I forget to say this, Miss Catherine, Now, this is an excellent opportunity for everybody to be involved. You know, we all have a responsibility. You know, it's kind of like, excuse me for bringing this up, but it's kind of like the civil rights movement. You know, a whole lot of things had to happen for progress. But then we can't sit on that progress as it relates to civil rights, and we can't sit on the progress as it relates to economics and education and all of those things which are vital, you know, to the improvement and the growth of the community. So I'm begging, you know, if you have a thought, a concept, a desire, or an initiative, let's just talk about it. And, you know, there are a lot of resources in Macon. And then, go ahead.
I was just say you learn from each other, and by having that, meeting new people, it bridges a divide that's a false divide. That you're just you're separated. You think you're separated, but when you sit down, you find these commonalities. I have a friend that went that he wanted to hear about the homeless situation, and Nancy needed another facilitator. And Nancy pulled him in and said, "Hey, I need you to facilitate this table." And so he was at a table with some homeless people, and he said it was the most powerful thing for him. I mean, he wouldn't have ever talked to them. I mean, and so, you know, we're all nervous sometimes about somebody that doesn't look like us or in a different situation, but we're all people, and just to have that opportunity, and you know what they learned, that for the homeless population, the number one thing that they need is that they would like a place to use the restroom.
Wow.
I mean, that's something simple, but
Right.
but there is no real, truly public restroom downtown, and so we would not have ever known that if we hadn't have actually had that conversation with them.
And
Yeah.
Scott Mitchell pointed out how this On the Table initiative allowed people to really understand the problems. And when you're not involved in it, you think the solutions are up here. A lot of times it's just down here. We
Yes,
just need a
they are.
public restroom. We don't need like all the belt line and everything. We just want the public restrooms. And I thought that was very interesting. I also, in our board meeting earlier, I heard someone say that they didn't realize that poverty was such an issue. And it made me realize, like, this was informational to people, because when you are existing in your own circumstances, you don't really understand what's happening. So I thought that was very cool as well.
Well, you all have created an atmosphere of help and assistance. Now, let me ask you this. Suppose somebody wants somebody to come and talk to their group about the library, about Newtown Macon, about the Community Foundation, and on the table. Would you all be willing to go? Because,
Of course.
you know,
Yes.
much more information is needed. So if in fact you want to know more about, you know, not only On the Table, but what's happening with Newtown Macon, you can call David Moore at
478-722-9909, or you can personally email me at david@newtownmacon.com.
or you want to know more about the library.
You can call me at 478-744-0850.
And the Community
You
Foundation.
can call us at 478-750-9338, or email me personally at ncleveland@cfcga.org.
Or kdennis@cfcga.org.
I want to express my deepest appreciation to all of you, and I was one to all of us, because
Yeah, 'cause you're a host of this area. So you were
I
a big part of it.
participated too.
Yes,
So
you did.
we're on to something good. Let's keep it rolling. This is a call to action.
Call to
I'm
action.
your host, Alex Habersham, having interviewed these phenomenal individuals and that phenomenal activity called On the Table. Have a great day.